Sell the store to your brother, or you're no longer our daughter. That's what my mother hissed across the dinner table, her fork slamming against the plate like a gavel. The room went silent. My brother leaned back in his chair, smirking like he had already won. My father crossed his arms, nodding in agreement, as if my fate had just been sealed by their decree. The store they were talking about wasn't just a store. It was worth nearly $700,000, yes. But more than that, it was the last piece of my late husband, Nolan. His dream. His blood, sweat, and vision. Every brick, every sign, every aisle carried his fingerprints. And now my own family was demanding I hand it over like it was nothing more than a bargaining chip for my brother O.'s next big gamble. I looked at my parents, at their cold determination. I looked at Brent's smug grin, the same grin he wore every time he got away with wrecking a car or skipping out on responsibility. My chest tightened, but not with fear, with clarity. For years, I'd been the afterthought, the invisible daughter. Straight A's ignored while Brent's C's were celebrated. Scholarships dismissed while his failures were excused. And now? They thought they could erase me again, just with an ultimatum. But something in me had shifted. Maybe it was Nolan's voice still echoing in my mind, reminding me of who I was. Maybe it was years of swallowing silence, finally turning into steel. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just smiled, stood up from that table, and walked out the door without a word. They thought I was defeated. But what they didn't know was that I already had a plan that would turn their greed, their favoritism, and their arrogance against them. And when it was done, they would wish they had never tried to strip Nolan's legacy away from me. Before we dive deeper into this unbelievable family betrayal, don't forget to comment below if you've ever faced a toxic family ultimatum. Hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of justice and revenge. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this unfolds. Because the dinner table ultimatum, that was just the beginning. Growing up, I learned early what it meant to be invisible. If Brent sneezed, my parents applauded. If I achieved something, it was met with silence. I still remember the day I won the state art competition at 12 years old. My design was displayed in front of hundreds of people. The applause was loud, the judges praised my work, and for one small moment, I felt seen. But when I turned to the crowd, my parents weren't there. They were across town, sitting in the bleachers at Brent's baseball tryouts. That pattern never changed. In high school, Brent came home waving a report card filled with C's and D's. My parents cheered, clapping him on the back like he was headed to Harvard. Meanwhile, I had straight A's taped neatly to my folder, barely earning a nod. When Brent turned 16, they bought him a brand new car, red and shining in the driveway. I was told I was independent enough to figure things out. So I scraped together money from part-time jobs, bought myself a used laptop, and used it to launch my freelance design work. College? My scholarship paid the bills. They didn't even bother showing up at my graduation. But when Brent dropped out of college after one semester, he got a lavish New Beginnings party complete with balloons and cake. Do you see the pattern? For them, Brent could fail 1,000 times and still be celebrated. I could succeed 1,000 times, and it meant nothing. That's why the store mattered so much. It wasn't just Nolan's dream. It was our dream. It was proof that I was capable of more than the little box my parents had shoved me into. That I wasn't just the less important child. Every shelf I stocked, every sign I designed, every deal Nolan and I made, it was a monument to the belief that I mattered. So when my parents told me to sell it, it wasn't just about money, it was about erasing me. Again. But this time, I wasn't that overlooked little girl anymore. This time, they were going to see me in a way they never had before. And the first step? Making sure they knew the store wasn't theirs to take. The bell above the store door jingled, but this time, it wasn't a customer. It was my parents. And behind them, Brent swaggered in with his usual smirk, followed by a sharp-looking realtor clutching a clipboard. I froze for half a second, the sound of the fridge humming louder than usual. Then Mom said it. "We're here to settle this." The realtor straightened her jacket, eyes scanning the shelves like she was already pricing them for resale. Dad crossed his arms, his jaw tight. "Enough games, Heidi. It's time to do what's right for your brother." Brent leaned against the counter like he owned the place. I've got big plans for the money, sis. You should be grateful I'm even letting you in on this. Grateful? For being robbed of Nolan's legacy? My chest burned, but I kept my face neutral. I'd learned long ago that showing emotion only fed their power. The realtor cleared her throat, flashing a rehearsed smile. Heidi, I've got a cash buyer ready. All you need to do is sign and you'll walk away with a clean slate. Her words were meant to sound tempting, but I heard what they really meant. Give up. Hand it over. Erase yourself. I looked at all of them. Mom's cold glare, Dad's silent authority, Brent's smug grin, and I almost laughed. They thought they had me cornered, like the little girl who used to stay quiet at the dinner table while they praised their golden boy. But I wasn't that girl anymore. You might want to hold off on that paperwork, I said calmly, wiping my hands on my apron. Confusion flickered across Mom's face. What are you talking about? And then right on cue, the back door swung open. Spencer Cole stepped inside. His suit was sharp, his presence even sharper. He gave me a nod, then turned to my family. I'm Spencer Cole, he said evenly, his voice carrying authority, the new owner of this store. The words dropped like a bomb. The realtor's clipboard slipped from her hands, clattering to the floor. Brent's smirk evaporated, leaving his mouth hanging open. Dad stiffened, his fists tightening. And Mom? Her eyes widened, her face draining of color. They hadn't just lost the battle. They'd lost the entire war before it even started. The silence after Spencer's words was deafening. You could almost hear the weight of reality crash down on them. What do you mean, new owner? Mom finally spat, her voice shrill and breaking. Spencer didn't flinch. He slid a crisp document from his leather folder and held it out. The deal is done. The store now legally belongs to me. Papers signed, filed, witnessed. Dad's face turned crimson. He stepped forward, pointing a trembling finger at me. You can't do this, Heidi. This store was supposed to be Brent's chance. You've betrayed your family. I held his gaze, steady and calm, even though my heart pounded in my chest. Nolan left the store to me, not Brent, and I don't owe anyone my life just because you say so. Brent's voice cracked, desperate now. This is insane. You sold my future. How could you do this to me? I almost pitied him, but only almost, because he had no idea the twist that was coming next. I took a slow step forward, my voice low but clear. Actually, I didn't leave. I'm leasing the upstairs space. That's my new design studio. I'll be working here every single day. Their reaction was instant. Mom staggered back as if I had slapped her. You're staying? After everything we've done for you? A bitter laugh slipped from my lips. Everything you've done for me? You mean ignoring me for years while handing Brent every second chance under the sun? No. This time, I'm doing something for me. The realtor bent down, hurriedly gathering her scattered papers, muttering, This changes everything. She could sense the deal was already dust. Spencer crossed his arms, his presence towering over Brent. From now on, Heidi works upstairs. I run the business downstairs. That's final. Brent turned on him, red-faced. You're my boss. How could you betray me like this? Spencer's reply was ice cold. Business is business, Brent. And unlike you, Heidi actually knows how to commit to something. The look on Brent's face, shock, fury, disbelief all tangled together, was almost poetic. For once, he wasn't the golden child. For once, he was the one left in the shadows. And that was just the beginning. It didn't take long for the whispers to spread. 3 days after the confrontation at the store, my phone buzzed with a call from an old neighbor, Mrs. Larson. Her voice was dripping with judgment. Heidi, I heard you're keeping that store all to yourself. Your brother needs help, you know. I froze, my stomach twisting. She barely knew me anymore, yet she spoke as if I had betrayed my entire bloodline. That was just the start. By noon, my cousin Jenna had texted, Why won't you share the money? Brent deserves a chance. By evening, my inbox was overflowing with guilt-laced emails. Family friends, distant relatives, even people I hadn't spoken to in years, all parroting the same script. I was selfish. I was greedy. I was turning my back on family, and I knew exactly where it came from. My mother, She had always been a master of reputation, smiling sweetly in public while cutting deep in private. This time, she weaponized the community itself. Every phone call, every text carried her fingerprints. She was painting me as the villain while Brent played the poor, misunderstood victim. I walked into a local coffee shop the next morning, craving nothing but quiet. Instead, I was ambushed by Sarah, a family friend who used to babysit me when I was little. She pulled me aside, her face tight with concern. "Heidi, everyone's talking. They say you're hoarding the store. That you don't care about family anymore. Is it true?" Her frown told me she'd already made up her mind. No answer would change it. I left my coffee untouched, my chest burning as I stepped out into the cold air. The community Nolan and I had built the store for, the one I had worked so hard to serve, was turning its back on me. And it felt like drowning. But I wasn't entirely alone. That evening, Mara showed up at my apartment with greasy takeout and a fierce look in her eyes. She plopped the bag on the table and crossed her arms. "Don't let them get to you," she snapped. "Your mom is spinning lies because she knows the truth doesn't work in her favor. The store is yours. Nolan left it to you. Don't forget that." Her words were a lifeline. And that night, something inside me shifted. If Mom wanted a war of whispers, I'd need a counterattack. But not the way she expected. Because I wasn't just going to defend myself. I was going to flip the script. That night, after Mara left, I sat in the dark with nothing but the hum of my refrigerator and the weight of my thoughts. If I kept fighting on my parents' terms, defending myself against every rumor, every guilt trip, I would drown. They wanted me on the defensive, cornered, explaining myself. I needed a different strategy. And then it hit me. Brent's big dreams. The ones Mom and Dad wanted me to sacrifice Nolan's legacy for. A tech startup that, from what I'd heard, barely even functioned. But Brent wasn't running that startup. He was working for someone else. Spencer Cole. I knew Spencer from high school. He was sharp, ambitious, and unlike Brent, he understood the grind of real business. If anyone could recognize the value of Nolan's store, it was him. And if Brent ever found out his boss was involved, well, that would sting even more. I dug through old contacts, my fingers trembling as I typed his name into my phone. There it was, his number, tucked away from years ago. For 10 minutes I stared at it, my thumb hovering, my pulse quickening. Finally, I sent the message. "Interested in a business deal? It's about the store." I expected hours of silence, maybe a polite brush-off. Instead, the reply came in minutes. "Let's meet." The next evening, I found myself in a diner across town, its neon lights flickering against the rain-streaked windows. Spencer sat in a booth, crisp suit despite the late hour, his expression unreadable. "What's this about, Heidi?" he asked, sipping his coffee like a man who already knew half the story. I took a deep breath and laid it all out. The store, my parents' ultimatum, the rumors. I didn't mention Brent by name, but Spencer didn't need me to. He leaned back, one eyebrow raised. "So you're saying the store's legally yours and you're considering selling?" "On my terms," I clarified, my voice firmer than I felt. "I'd sell the business side, but lease back the upstairs for my design studio. I won't let them erase Nolan's legacy, or mine." Spencer's lips curved into the faintest smile. He tapped the table with his finger, calculating. "I like it," he said finally. "I'll have my lawyer draw up an offer." When I walked out of that diner, the air felt different. Lighter, sharper, charged with possibility. For the first time, I wasn't just surviving their attacks. I was planning my own move. They thought I was weak, cornered, trapped. But soon, they'd realize I was 3 steps ahead. Friday morning started like any other. I was restocking shelves at the store, the earthy smell of fresh produce filling the air. My hands were steady, but my mind was buzzing with Spencer's offer, the secret deal I hadn't told a soul about. Then the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, and my stomach dropped. Mom and Dad stormed in, faces tight with determination. Brent trailed behind them, his smirk plastered across his face, and with them was a stranger, a realtor clutching a clipboard. "Good morning, Heidi," Mom said sharply, skipping any attempt at politeness. "We're here to settle this." Dad's voice boomed across the empty store. "Enough games. Doris has a buyer ready. You're signing today." My heart thudded against my ribs, but I didn't move. Doris, the realtor, offered me a practiced smile, pen already poised over a stack of papers. "This is a cash offer," she said smoothly. "It's fair, and you can walk away with no worries." Brent stepped forward, puffed up like a peacock. "I've got big plans for that money. My startup is about to take off, Heidi. Don't stand in the way." His arrogance stung like it always did, because he truly believed he deserved it. Mom and Dad's eyes glittered with expectation, certain they had me cornered. I forced a calm expression, though my chest felt tight. "You might want to hold off on that paperwork," I said, my voice steady but low. For a split second, confusion flickered across Mom's face. Dad scowled. Doris hesitated, her pen hovering in midair. Brent snorted. "What does that mean?" Mom demanded. And then, right on cue, the back door creaked open. Spencer Cole walked in. Sharp suit, calm stride, his presence shifting the energy in the room instantly. He didn't look at me first. He looked at them. "Morning," he said, voice smooth but commanding. Then, turning to my parents, he added, "I'm Spencer Cole, the new owner of this store." The words hit like thunder. Mom's mouth fell open. Dad froze, jaw tight, fists clenching at his sides. Brent's smirk vanished, replaced by wide-eyed shock. Doris fumbled her clipboard, clearly blindsided. "What do you mean, new owner?" Mom stammered. Spencer's gaze was unshakable. "I bought it last week." "The deal's done. This store isn't Heidi's to sign away anymore. It's mine." The silence that followed was electric, thick with disbelief, rage, and the undeniable sting of defeat. The silence after Spencer's words was deafening. You could practically hear the hum of the refrigerator in the back as my parents tried to process what had just happened. Dad's face went red first, veins rising in his neck. "You can't just sell it without telling us," he barked, his voice echoing against the walls. I finally stepped forward, my hands no longer trembling. "I didn't need your permission," I said quietly, but with steel in my tone. "Nolan left the store to me. It was mine to decide, and I did." Brent spun toward Spencer, his voice cracking. "You're my boss! How could you do this? You were supposed to help me!" Spencer didn't flinch. He folded his arms, calm as ever. "Business is business, Brent. You should know that by now. If you wanted this store, you should have earned it yourself." Mom's eyes flashed with betrayal. "So what now, Heidi? You just walk away and let him take everything?" That's when I smiled, the first real smile I'd felt in weeks. I gestured toward the staircase at the back of the store. "Not everything," I said. "I'm leasing the upstairs. That's my new design studio. I'll be working right here, above the store, every single day." The color drained from Mom's face. Dad's fists unclenched, then clenched again, like he couldn't decide between rage or despair. Brent gaped, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. You're leasing from him?" Mom screeched, her voice going shrill. "After everything we've done for you?" I almost laughed. Everything they'd done for me? Years of favoritism toward Brent. Years of treating me like I was disposable. Years of ignoring my achievements. Now they had the audacity to act like I owed them something. Spencer cut in smoothly, sealing the moment. "Heidi and I have a fair business arrangement. She gets the upstairs for her work. I run the store below. Everyone wins. Well, almost everyone." Doris, the realtor, was already packing up her papers, muttering, "This changes everything. I wasn't informed of any sale." She didn't look at my parents again. Brent, red-faced and trembling, spat out, "You think you're so clever, don't you? This isn't over." I met his glare without blinking. "No, Brent. It is over. This store was never yours to take. Not then, not now, not ever." The air crackled with their fury, but for the first time I felt nothing but freedom. I thought the war was over. That moment when Spencer declared ownership felt like the final checkmate, but my parents, they weren't finished. They never knew when to quit. It started with a phone call from Lois, my lawyer. Her tone was calm but steady. The kind of voice you use when delivering bad news you've already prepared for. Heidi, she said, your parents filed a lawsuit. They're claiming the sale to Spencer was fraudulent. They say you coerced him under duress. For a moment, I just sat there, blinking at the wall. Fraudulent? Duress? Spencer was one of the sharpest businessmen in Birmingham. He'd never been coerced into anything in his life. But I knew exactly what this was. It wasn't about the truth. It was about intimidation. They thought legal pressure would break me. The next weeks were chaos. Every time I stepped into the store, the whispers followed. Heidi's being sued. Did she really trick her brother out of the store? The same community that had turned against me before was eating up every rumor my parents spread. And then came the texts. Mom's messages dripped with venom. You're tearing this family apart. This isn't about money. It's about loyalty. You've chosen a stranger over your own blood. Dad was more blunt. You'll regret this when you're alone. Each word was meant to cut me down, to make me second-guess myself. But every time I felt my resolve slip, I remembered Nolan. His laugh. His belief in me. The nights we stayed up sketching logos for the store, dreaming about the future. This wasn't about greed. It was about protecting what we'd built together. Lois walked me through the legal process, pointing to each clause in the signed contract with Spencer. This is airtight, she assured me. Notarized, filed, witnessed. They don't have a leg to stand on. Still, the waiting was brutal. Court dates loomed. My parents showed up with their high-priced lawyer, Roger Tate, a man who strutted like he owned the courtroom. He threw out accusations like confetti, fraud, manipulation, coercion. But every time, Lois calmly dismantled his arguments. Here's the notarized deed. Here's the payment receipt. Here are the witnesses. Watching my parents' faces crumble in that sterile courtroom was surreal. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one on trial in their eyes. They were. And when the judge finally spoke the words I'd been praying for, case dismissed. The sale stands. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. Mom's eyes went wide with disbelief. Dad's jaw hung open. Brent looked like a boy who'd just had his favorite toy taken away. But I knew this wasn't the end, because when a family like mine loses in court, they don't just walk away quietly. They look for another way to strike back. The gavel had fallen. The lawsuit was dismissed. Legally, I had won. But battles with family are never just about the law. They're about pride, image, and control. The morning after the verdict, I walked into the store and found Spencer waiting for me at the counter. He gave me a knowing look. They're not done, Heidi, he said. People like that, they'd rather burn everything down than admit they lost. And he was right. Within days, the gossip mill spun harder than ever. Rumors about me flooded Birmingham. I stole the store. I betrayed my family. I ruined my brother's future. My parents painted themselves as victims, martyrs of a cruel daughter who chose money over blood. But here's the thing about lies. They crack when you hold them up to the light. And my community had started to see the truth. Loyal customers came back, whispering, "We know what really happened." Clara, my neighbor, organized a small event at the store. "Let's remind them who you really are," she said. That night, people filled the aisles, neighbors, old friends, even vendors who'd worked with Nolan. They weren't there for my parents. They were there for me, for us. Meanwhile, Brent's downfall was unraveling right before my eyes. Spencer had given him a chance to work in the store, but Brent's arrogance couldn't survive the reality of accountability. He botched inventory, skipped shifts, and barked at customers. One rainy afternoon, Spencer finally said the words Brent had never heard in his life. "You refired." For once, Mom and Dad couldn't swoop in to save him, and the look on Brent's face as he stormed out, that mix of rage and panic, was the clearest proof that the golden boy had finally run out of excuses. My parents' grip on the community slipped after that. They'd spent thousands on a failed lawsuit, drained themselves trying to spin the narrative, and alienated the very people they'd hoped to sway. Whispers about their selfishness spread. Invitations dried up. Their power faded. And me? I finally felt free. The store below thrived under Spencer's management, while my design studio upstairs blossomed into something bigger than I'd imagined. Mara and I launched our agency, Reed & Walsh Creative, and clients poured in. For the first time in years, I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. One evening, as I locked up the studio, I paused at the sign Nolan and I had chosen together all those years ago. My hand brushed the weathered wood, and for the first time, I didn't feel grief. I felt gratitude. I had protected his legacy, but I'd also built my own. My parents had tried to force me into surrender. Instead, they lost everything they thought they controlled. And me? I gained everything that truly mattered: freedom, self-respect, and a future of my own making. I turned to the window where the lights of Birmingham glowed against the night sky and whispered to myself, I'm not invisible anymore. And that's how I turned my family's ultimatum into my liberation. What about you? Have you ever stood your ground against impossible pressure? Share your story in the comments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more incredible stories of justice, revenge, and redemption.